Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today, unfortunately, we have a less than ideal topic to cover, and that's that thanks to a new survey that is going out to some of the player base, I'm afraid that we're headed in an uncertain direction with the Division 2. Now, fortunately, this shouldn't correlate at all with the quality of the new content we're anticipating, so there's no need to worry there. But despite some past assurances, it seems as though Ubisoft might be pursuing something that both the Division and the wider gaming industry has shown immense distaste for, NFTs, and that they could be making their way into our favorite franchise of the Division. If you don't know what those are, don't worry, we'll be getting into it a little bit later in the video, so I want to talk about that because I know that this is a topic that a lot of people will have some very strong opinions on, and I think it matters as far as the future of the franchise, so let's get into it. I do just want to say that this video isn't entirely gloom and doom. I'm going to cover this new survey first, but definitely stick around to the end because there are absolutely things we can do as players to, try and make our opinions heard on this subject, and so if you're passionate enough about this stuff one way or the other, I encourage you to hear this out all the way through. But let's get into where this all started. That is when I received an email from Ubisoft user research on Wednesday of this past week asking me to take a 10-minute survey regarding topics such as player gaming and shopping habits. Now, since that didn't reference the Division directly, it seemed pretty generic, I was like, meh, I didn't really, care to fill it out. That was until recently someone commented on one of my recent videos saying that they too received this survey, but upon actually going in and filling it out, they said that they asked questions directly related to the Division 2 and NFTs, and that's when I was like, oh shit, alright. So I went back down and sat down to fill it out, and before I provide some of my own thoughts and commentary on the topic, which I certainly am going to do, I want to first lay out exactly what this survey contains for those of you who may not have had it sent to you or whatever. So I didn't screenshot every single question they asked because there were a fair amount, but I archived the ones that were most directly related and relevant to the Division 2 and how that could connect to everyone's favorite topic of NFTs. And so they begin by just gauging your general demographic and gaming interests, and this is why I was initially turned off to filling it out because it seemed like a very generic UB research survey, but some of the first relevant things you get asked are about the nature of microtransactions themselves. You can see right here, in general, how would you describe your attitude towards microtransactions in video games, i.e. spending real money for virtual items or currency? This does not include DLCs, Season Pass. So you would think that this might relate to like the premium credits and stuff in the store that we see in the Division 2 right now. Obviously, you can choose your answers there. But then you move on to the next one. How interested are you in the following ways that video games implement monetization? And then you can see some are better in that list and some are worse. We have Battle Pass, loot boxes, Season Pass, downloadable content, individual item purchases, bundles of items, premium or VIP status, non-fungible tokens, NFTs, gifting items to another player, or trading items with another player. And still at this point, they haven't mentioned the Division 2. So at first I was like, oh, well, that's, their usual NFT pitch. But then you go to the next page, have you ever played the Division 2? And that's when you're like, oh, man. You sent this to me for a reason, didn't you? And so, as we move on, when was the last time you made a microtransaction in the Division 2, i.e. when did you buy items or virtual currency with your own money, downloadable content, or Season Pass does not count? So, they're trying to gauge how often do you play the Division 2, do you even play it overall, and if you do, how, in tune are you with the microtransactions that are already in that game? So then moving on, they said, think of all the microtransactions you did in the Division 2. In considering all of them together, indicate how important that following reason... Indicate how important the following reasons were in your decision to make a purchase. Remember that this does not include, same thing they said before. And so I'm not going to list all these because there were a lot, but some of the notable ones that followed this heading were, I like to collect things, I want to progress faster, I want my character to be stronger, I want others to notice I have rare items, I like to own many types of the same item, I want others to see me, and I want to be able to better face challenges of the game. So those are a few, and again, under the umbrella for this question, asking the relevance of each of these statements towards your desire for purchasing microtransactions in the Division 2. And so I picked out a few of the ones that seemed a little more sketchy and NFT driven. Things didn't quite end there in the survey, however. If we move back over here, the next one that they asked after that series, that whole thing was, for the questions on this page, please continue to think about only the same game you've been answering questions about thus far, i.e. the Division 2, when deciding what items to buy in that game using microtransactions, how important are each of the following aspects in your decision? Level and polish and quality of the item, alignment with the game's fantasy, crossovers, that's something we're going to talk about for sure, animations and visual effects, colors, rarity, sound effects, and they're part of a collection. So that was obviously that chart there. And then below that's on the same page. So again, it still says to think about the game you've been answering, the Division 2. What do you think about buying items that affect the gameplay in that game? And this is, again, another very sketchy question here, because so far we don't have any of those in the Division, but then obviously you can range from saying I would never buy items that affect gameplay to I would only buy items that affect gameplay, so that in and of itself is very interesting for sure. And then they kind of round it off by saying across all of your games, how frequently do you engage in microtransactions? And I assume this is just trying to gauge, does this person only care about the Division, or do they have wider interest, and how do they engage with microtransactions in those games? Which, again, I would assume would be very relevant towards what they're trying to figure out. And so that's about the extent of the relevant and interesting questions on the survey. There's a lot to go over there. I think it boils down, for me, to this. In my view, the Division has one of the most consumer-friendly approaches to microtransactions and monetization as far as, other live service games in its sphere. At least current day Division 2, we'll say, does, because it's gone through a lot of iterations ever since the premium vendor first popped up in the Division 1. And by that statement, I mean that the game offers 0 purchasable game-enhancing items, right? There's no XP tokens you can buy, resource bundles, nothing like that. A vast amount of the items in its in-game store are purchasable with textiles, which is an in-game currency. Some of it isn't, but again, those are just cosmetics. Their apparel events are able to be completed, completely via gameplay. You'll have to play a lot in the week that it's active for sure, but it's like 4 levels for 1 key, so, it's certainly doable. And then the Battle Pass, the seasonal premium track, the offerings on there do give you loot for sure, but it doesn't offer anything exclusive other than cosmetics. And again, I think exclusivity and non-gameplay affecting are the most important terms in this conversation. So yes, in my view, current day Division 2 has a quite consumer-friendly monetization strategy. And so to see the survey going out specifically inquiring about the Division 2 and mentioning things such as NFTs, crossovers, and game-affecting purchases, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It gives me the feeling that Ubisoft is looking to shake up what is kind of a rare anomaly in the gaming industry, and that's a relatively consumer-friendly monetization system. Now, of course, I'm fully aware that this survey does not 100% mean they're going to implement any changes to what we have now in the game, but I'll tell you what, this thing gives me major deja vu, and you want to know why? It's because back in November of 2020, a large amount of the Division community, myself included, got emailed a survey inquiring about playing the Division on mobile devices. And we all thought it was crazy. They were asking about if that's something you'd be interested in, if so, what kind of gameplay elements are most important to you on, a condensed mobile format, graphics, controls, audio, etc. And a lot of people were skeptical about it. I thought they were just kind of gauging interest for something they might pursue way down the line. Lo and behold, 6 months later, in May of 2021, the Division Mobile is announced alongside the larger Division Universe announcement, and now we're set to get it probably this summer or sometime this year. So I'm not saying this stuff is 100% in the cards, but it really wouldn't shock me. And I think that's too bad. Certainly, I don't want to see any gameplay affecting items enter the store. Hell no. The possibility of crossovers is very meh to me. Personally, if it were up to me, I wouldn't do them. I would much rather just see the Division's lore deepened and expanded instead of breaking that immersion. But if they happen, it's not the end of the world for me. On the other hand, though, a lot of Division fans despise the idea of crossovers, so that's another treacherous path that Ubi seems to be considering. And then we come to the Holy Grail, everybody's favorite NFTs, which for those who may not know, and if you want a more accurate and in-depth description, then definitely do some of your own research because I'm by no means an expert. But for video games specifically, NFT technology offers the possibility of individualizing a cosmetic item, let's say a helmet, with a unique code that means technically, depending on, how much you squint your eyes, you're the only person in the world who owns that specific item, right? And then you have access to a marketplace of sorts where, once you no longer want the item or whatever, you can trade it to other players for, I think, real money, I believe is the pitch. And then there's a digital history, you can view of who's owned the item and where it's been over time. Now, I'll be completely honest with everybody, and I've said this both publicly and privately to certain people on Twitter before. I don't hate the idea of NFTs themselves. I have zero doubt that there is some way in which you could create a cool and meaningful system to be developed for a game where you can assign cosmetics individual ownership, and you could create some sort of cool, non-predatory marketplace and economy for people to share and trade stuff. I used to love buying and selling rare items and gauging the economy on MMOs like World of Warcraft and, other older games when I was a kid. And NFTs in video games, at least with how Ubisoft has pitched them thus far, seems like an evolution and expansion of access to that kind of thing in more games. The problem is, I can tell from their actions that Ubisoft is not interested in creating this cool new step for the industry. They've jumped on NFT technology as soon as it's become mildly popular in pop culture, and they're now pushing it out the door with Ubisoft Quartz so they can try and be, finally first to a trend at something for once. And I mean, they got immense backlash when they first announced it for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. That was like one of the last videos that came out on YouTube before they started hiding dislike numbers, but it had a staggering dislike to like ratio. But instead of acknowledging that feedback, trying to take people's opinions on how to improve the system, they just went quiet for a while, and now they've recently said that they're working on expanding it to more of their games. And beyond the gaming industry itself, NFTs have been documented to be incredibly harmful to the environment to create and sustain. There's a massive amount of art theft and crimes being done to pre-existing work, and they're just not yet a stable, sensible thing to try and be bringing into video games. And so I have zero desire to see anything like that adopted into the Division until Ubisoft can show us that they actually care about making it into something beneficial and cool for the players, instead of just saying, oh, they just don't understand it yet, which was something they were quoted saying not that long ago. And so to see this survey reference NFTs by name, ask in various ways about item ownership, trading amongst your friends and the community, all of that in relation to the Division 2, it concerns me what we might see over the next few months once this big update for the game releases and the regular content schedule resumes. Will Season's premium tracks become more focused on gameplay affecting items? Will apparel events include tradable NFTs? Will crossovers, more besides Resident Evil, which we had last year, come to the game? I don't know. And that's unfortunate because I think all of us would much rather Ubisoft put the effort into actual game content, stuff we care about, and make more DLCs. We'd all happily buy another expansion like Woney, but instead, this is the path they seem to be heading down. Now, Yannick was asked about this exact topic back in December. If I can pull up the tweet right here, somebody asked him, with the recent announcements that Ghost Recon Breakpoint will be getting NFTs, are there any plans that the Division 2 will be getting NFTs? And he said no. Again, this is on December 18th, 2021. You can see right there, no, we have no plans to bring NFTs in the Division. Now look, I have no doubt that Yannick was telling the truth, and back in December there were no plans to implement them, but that was 2 months ago. And as much as I believe the dev team themselves probably have no desire to add NFTs to the game, that's the exact kind of thing that usually falls under the jurisdiction of Ubisoft Corporate. If they want more microtransactions and new monetization technology brought into their games, it's probably going to happen sooner or later. I still remember that cursed State of the Game episode from Division 1 when they brought in some weird outsider corporate dude to talk about the monetization with the premium vendor. It was so awkward. Like, this dude was cracking weird jokes. He was talking about monetization so playfully, and I just remember Hamish and I think Yannick or his Peter just giving each other these weird looks, oh man. And I can picture this exact scenario playing out, behind the scenes right now, if Ubisoft is indeed pushing for more monetization within the Division 2. And now I did say at the start of the video that there would be a call to action here at the end, and that's because this is a survey. Ubisoft is gauging the interest on this type of stuff. Now, we know they didn't seem to care much when it came to them announcing courts with the amount of feedback and backlash they got there. But if you're someone who has a feeling about this stuff one way or the other, in relation to the Division 2, and you see this survey lying around in your inbox, take it. Tell them you have zero interest in NFTs, crossovers, game-affecting purchases. That's what I did. I logged the type of monetization I'm okay with, which is our current season pass and individual store item purchases, because what we have now is very, again, relatively speaking, a consumer-friendly setup, at least compared to some of the other games out there on the market, and I think it would be a shame to see that change. So yeah, take the survey, send Ubisoft a feedback form or whatever if you didn't get in, make your voice heard. Ultimately, the decision is not in our hands for how this will play out, but it's better than not trying. Thank you all so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Let me know your thoughts on this entire conversation regarding monetization within the Division 2. Does the possibility of Ubisoft pursuing NFTs, crossovers, and potentially game-affecting purchases make you feel either excited or angry in regards to them, potentially adding it to the Division? And what are your thoughts on crossovers and NFTs overall? I know other creators did plenty of videos on this last time that they were in the news with Ghost Recon, but I don't believe I've ever done an NFT-centric video here on the channel, so I will certainly be very curious to hear all of your thoughts on the matter, because I'm guessing there will be a lot of them, and probably some very strong ones. So let's try to keep things civil, but certainly let me know what you're thinking. That's going to do it for me, everybody. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and until the next one, guys, RogueGold out.